everyone and welcome back to my channel. As you probably guessed, we are doing another mental health video because I like to put them in between my story times and things like that. So I was actually going to be filming a completely different mental health video, which was actually going to be on my mum's actual real life mental health reports and of when she got diagnosed and the whole background on that. But I thought what would be better were to actually tell people details or facts about bipolar first, so that when you guys actually do watch that video, you've got a better understanding instead of having to kind of research it all yourself. So I've kind of split it up into different categories, which I'll go through in a minute. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate all the support, and please, if you are willing to share some of my mental health stories across your social medias, just to get the conversation going a little bit and to spread a bit more awareness. Get my note. Bipolar disorder is a mental health condition that affects your moods, which can make your mood swings go from one extreme to another. It actually used to be known as manic depressive disorder, but it was actually changed to bipolar disorder. Some people still refer to it as manic depressive disorder, but that's up to you. I'm now going to go into some statistics that I researched, and this was all help from our NHS. So this is actually based on the UK, so I do not know the statistics for places outside of the UK, but if anyone wants to join in and let me know if there is anyone watching from another country what your statistics are, that would actually be quite helpful and useful. 1 to 2% of the population in the UK experience a lifetime of bipolar. And actually in recent research, they've discovered that it's actually gone up more, and they've actually discovered as well during their research that 5% of the population, which doesn't seem much, but when you think about it, it is, are actually in the bipolar spectrum. And that basically may be people like myself who experience certain bipolar disorder things, like very different mood changes, swings very quickly. On average, it takes 10.5 years to receive a correct diagnosis of bipolar in the UK. 10.5 years. I mean, that's half of my life that takes to diagnose someone correctly. And before being diagnosed correctly, it is always a chance, actually there is 3.5 times more likely to have a misdiagnosis, which is exactly what happened to my mum, and when we go into her reports you will see that. Bipolar disorder increases the risk of suicide by 20%. Now that is a high number, so it's either 20% or 20 times more likely. Either way, that is such a high number of suicide rate. The World Health Organization identifies bipolar as one of the top causes of losses of life, and this is normally in the ages between 15 to 44 years old. Now, again, that is such a short gap, 15 to 44, and it is the top cause of loss of life. Compared to other health problems, treatment for bipolar is still badly affected by misdiagnosis, misunderstanding, and stigma. I'm now going to go into what causes bipolar. Now, there are so many different things that could affect people, that could trigger people, that I will not go into everything, but some of the things are pretty self-explanatory. But there are 3 main points, okay? There are genetics, chemical imbalance in the brain, and also, as I've discussed just a second ago, triggers in life. So first we're going to talk about the genetics. Family members of a person with bipolar disorder have a increased risk of developing it themselves, but there has never been proven a single genetic gene that is responsible for causing a bipolar disorder. Instead, a number of genetic and environmental factors are thought to be the reason behind this. And as I mentioned in either my first or my second video on YouTube, part 1 or part 2, I'll put both of them linked below. When I went to go see my doctor, I was pretty scared about being diagnosed with bipolar myself, but he basically said that it's basically never been proven that it is a genetic thing, and actually it's more than likely it would be a learned trait, or when you're surrounded by things. So like when you're surrounded by negative people, you start to think negatively. When you are surrounded by positive people, you think a lot more positive. So that is kind of the nature nurture way of it. It's kind of more of an environmental state that you're brought up in, and it's never been scientifically proven that there is a genetic reason behind someone having bipolar disorder. Next, we're going to be talking about the chemical imbalances in people's brains. Now, the chemicals responsible for controlling people's brain functions are called neurotransmitters, okay? And these include, if I pronounce this first one wrong, I'm very sorry, noradrenaline. Noradrenaline? Possibly. Noradrenaline, that's what we're going with today. And serotonin and dopamine. There's some evidence that there is an imbalance in levels of one or more neurotransmitter in your brain. A person may develop some symptoms of bipolar because of this. So there's evidence that episodes of mania and may occur when levels of, here we go again, noradrenaline are too high. And it is the opposite way, that if your noradrenaline levels are too low, you become very depressive. So it's always the case that there's maybe no in between. You may be very manic at one point and then be very depressive at the next, depending on the levels of this word. Triggers, a stressful circumstance or situation often triggers the symptoms of bipolar disorder. As I said in my part 2 video, my trigger was my relationship ending in college, and there was many other things before that could have triggered it, but because my chemicals in my brain were able to level them out fine, there was no risk of me having that. But then that one thing triggered me to then have this really depressive state that seemed to just have continued on. So my mum was exactly the same. She had many situations in her life that I'm not going to go into because it's not my place to say, but she had many traumatizing, I would say, situations in her life growing up and through early adulthood that have built up to the reason as to why she has got bipolar disorder. The one thing that actually set this whole thing off was my uncle being hit by a car outside of my nan's home. It was seen and it was witnessed by my grandparents, and they had to see their son laying in the road, lifeless, and my mum was also there. She drove up to see what had happened, and unfortunately she did witness her brother laying in the road and being taken away by air ambulance. Now, this is a very traumatic experience, along with the other things that my mum has been through throughout her life. This one thing really set her off, and this is what started the whole events of her bipolar. I next want to go in and talk about some of the symptoms of bipolar. I think this is really important to share with some people, because I feel that some people, especially myself, I didn't want to believe that I was depressed, but After doing my own research, I realised that I was very depressed. That was because I actually done research for myself, and I think some people do get a bit scared to research things because they think they're overreacting. So I just want to point out some key factors of bipolar, which do merge into other forms of depression as well, but as you probably guessed, there's many different similarities between depressive disorders. Bipolar is characterised by the extreme mood swings. These can range from extreme highs, which is described as mania, to extreme lows, which is obviously described as depression. Unlike simple mood swings, each of these episodes of bipolar disorder can last for a number of weeks or even longer. And some people may not experience ever a normal episode, and that must be so draining to live with that. I know that my mum, she does have normal stages, but then she does have very manic and very depressive stages. But to live in a mind where you constantly feel depressed over a number of months or even years must be absolutely horrendous. For myself, I have spells, so I may have like 3 days where I feel really down for no reason, but then I do kind of click back to my normal self for a few days, and then I may be very happy, and that's why I kind of was confused, because I didn't know if I did have bipolar, but I haven't. Depressive states. I'm going to be plotting all of the depressive states all over the screen as we speak, because I don't want to ramble on too much about ones that people already know. So obviously the most obvious one is feeling sad, hopeless or irritable most of the time. Obviously that is just a bog standard thing that everyone knows about depression. Difficulty concentrating and remembering things. Now, I don't know if you remember, but in a few of my videos ago, I think it was the one where I done my vlog for the week where I was off sick. I'll put that link below too. I noticed my memory was deteriorating. I felt that my memory was not as good as it used to be. Now, after doing this research, it makes a lot more sense. And it makes a lot more sense to me now, because it is actually quite a common thing for people who suffer with depression to have mini spells of like basically memory loss. Feeling emptiness or worthless, I understand that feeling so much. Feeling empty is a horrible feeling. It feels like you have no feeling. It feels that you can never describe how you're feeling because there isn't one. That feeling is the most frustrating feeling, I think, because to have no feeling, to be empty and not be able to describe why and how is a very frustrating thing. Being delusional, having hallucinations and disturb or illogical thinking. So illogical thinking may be things like doing something very out of the ordinary that you would not do. It's like me maybe just randomly starting to sell everything that I love because I just felt like it. The people with bipolar disorder are very known for doing this, sort of going out and spending money on lots of things but having no real explanation as to why they spent the money on all this thing. That is kind of the illogical thinking. This one I'm just going to say because it shocked me, and it is actually one that is actually on the NHS website, and it is waking up early. My boyfriend always moans at me because I can never lay in, and when I started to research a bit more about depression and waking up early, because some people think that it's all about you're laying in your bed and you can't be asked to do anything, but for me, I have to wake up early, and I rarely have long lay-ins, and it is very frustrating, and it is actually because your mind is constantly working, kind of like your chemical imbalances are fighting against each other. So because you've got so much going on in your brain, you're waking up early and actually having a lack of sleep. The obvious one is suicidal thoughts. Again guys, if you are having suicidal thoughts, please, please, please look at the links below and seek advice. Okay, so we're now going to be talking about the mania type of experiences people that have. Again, not going to go into everything. I am just going to say some key points, but I will put all of the bullet points on the screen. Feeling very happy, elevated or overjoyed. So sometimes people with bipolar disorder over exaggerate their happiness, maybe sometimes to compensate for not wanting to feel so down, and when they actually get that excitedness and feeling happy for once, it's amazing. And I've had it myself. I have had it many times myself actually, where I've come out of this depressive state and I am so happy. Everything makes me happy to the point where I want to carry on being happy, but it then starts to roll down again. Talking very quickly. Now, I talk very quickly as it is. It's something that people do because when you are depressed, you tend to keep your emotions inside, you tend to not want to speak to people. So when you actually get that burst of energy to talk to people, you want to get everything out. You want to be excited about everything. Also, one thing about these mania things is you can actually be very easily irritated or agitated, and this is the one thing that will set someone back from a mania type of effect to a depressive effect. So one thing which I experience a lot and I am trying to manage, but God knows it is fucking hard. I could be on top of the world and my boyfriend could literally make one comment about something that someone thinks is so stupid, but I would take it and it would irritate the hell out of me, and that would literally last for ages and I would not get out of a depressive state again. So mania kind of merges into a depressive state because anything whilst you're in mania that irritates you really easily, because you're so happy. You think that everything that bad happens is personally directed to you, and that's how you fall back into this depressive state. Also, not feeling sleepy and not wanting to eat is also part of mania because you are wanting to remain happy all the time. You don't want to waste it eating and you don't want to waste it sleeping. Some parts of mania, like I said before, a big part of bipolar disorder is spending large sums of money on expensive things and sometimes things that you can't afford, and this is where you may fall into getting loans out, and that's where all of this trouble starts to happen. During these mania stage, you might find people with bipolar are making riskier decisions, things that they normally wouldn't do, like random things like let's go bungee jumping, or let's just do something that is very risky or even harmful to someone's health. I've actually watched on YouTube cases of people who have had bipolar disorder and they've done very strange things like go hiking in the forest and they've just vanished because they're during this manic state they think they're invincible, but really they're not. I'm now going to talk about people who can be affected. Now let me say before everyone starts going, anyone can be affected. I know guys, I know, but there are some statistics, I don't know why I can't talk, but there are some statistics that lead to people being affected. Now, let me make it known that any man, any woman, any age, any background, and this is even mentioned on the NHS website, that they can be affected no matter what. You don't have to have a bad upbringing. You don't have to have the most money in the world. It can be anyone at all. Bipolar disorder is fairly common actually, and it is actually one person in every 100 people. So in every 100 people there is one person who has bipolar disorder. Now just imagine all the other type of depressive disorders you've got. Imagine how many more people in that 100 have some sort of depression or anxiety or disorder or mental health issue. Do you know what I mean? These people will always be diagnosed at some point of their life, or they may never know that they have bipolar. As I said, bipolar disorder can happen at any age, absolutely any age, although it is mostly common between the ages of 15 and 19 and rarely develops after 40. So before I said ages at the start of the video, age 14 to 44, risks of suicide. However, the most common age for people is between 15 and 19. We need to start focusing on young people's mental health. It is a big risk nowadays. People are starting to notice it more, but is anything helping? We need to give people, children, the time and effort to express how they're feeling about stuff, and not just making them feel that school life is the most important thing in the world, like family and friends and love and spending time outside and doing things with people you love is the most important thing in the world, I think. I really don't think that education should be at the top of people's priority list, because this is actually one of the main points of children getting depressed and suffering with bipolar, is because they are constantly having pressure pushed on them about education. We're children, okay? I still class myself as a child, and I am 21. I don't feel like a grown adult. I don't feel like I should be out there putting, money on a house or something. Or if you feel that you're ready to do that, that's fine. I personally don't feel ready to do that. It just goes to show everyone grows up at different rates, guys, okay? Please don't sit there and think because you failed a course in uni, because you failed this in college, because you didn't pass this in high school, that you're a failure. You are not a failure. You can simply take that class again. That class is always going to be there. And if anyone ever pressures you so much into thinking that getting a job that you don't want to do, or that you think is just too much effort and it's causing you stress, don't do it, guys. Like, it's not worth it. I just want to tell you something. I went to college thinking I was going to go to uni and study and be a criminologist and either be that or a lawyer. After finishing college, I was very depressed, and do you know what? I'm happy I got depressed during that time, because if I would have went to uni and studied the things that I wanted to study and been so depressed the way I was, I don't want to know what may or may not have happened, because it is such a big pressure. And I am so thankful that my mum and dad have never, ever put pressure on me to go and do something that I don't want to do. They've always told me there's always other options, and if you find after these other options you want to go back to option one, then do it. What is stopping you? And this is the thing, guys, if it's showing statistically that ages 15 to 19 are suffering most with bipolar, what is that saying to you? Finally, for this section, guys, the pattern of mood swings in bipolar disorder varies widely, like very widely. For example, some people only have a couple of bipolar disorders in their lifetime. Sometimes it only lasts a month or a year in their lifetime and can be stable in between, while others have many episodes, such as my mum. And I always hope that maybe one day I will wake up and I will feel different and not be depressed. And sometimes I do wake up having that feeling that today's the day, I've changed, and then 3 days later I feel shit again. But unfortunately that's just the swings and roundabouts of living with depression. But bipolar disorder is very varied, and that is why people sometimes struggle to identify it. I'm going to finish this video off with treatment options, so you guys know what is out there and what is available to you. If you find anything else that I've not included in this or put in the links below, please, please, please comment them. Like, if you know a certain group that's specifically for certain disorders, please can you comment them below, because I would love people who come to watch this certain video, if they feel that they have a different disorder that they need help with, can look in the comments and see if there is anything out there. As always, please get advice from your doctor. There are several options for treating bipolar disorder, okay? So we're just focusing on bipolar disorder treatment that can make a difference. They aim to control the effects of an episode and help with bipolar disorder to live a kind of normal possible life, just as normal as you possibly could get with bipolar. It's also thought that using a combination of the stuff I'm going to discuss next helps to control bipolar disorder. And my mum actually has different medications mixed in together to help her bipolar disorder, which is what this means. So the first one is medicine to prevent episodes of mania or depression. These are known as mood stabilizers, and you can take them every day on a long-term basis. The next type of medicine to treat the main symptoms of depression and mania are given directly when they happen. So you can either have a medicine to take a long time throughout the day, all the time, to control everything, or when you feel an episode coming on, you will take medicine when you feel it coming on. It's also really important when you are looking for some sort of treatment to really knuckle down the triggers of your depression or mania, just so that you know yourself when you have an episode coming on, so that you can pinpoint things. You can maybe distance yourself from things that make you depressed or make you in that mania kind of state. There's also obviously psychological treatment. Things such as talking therapy, which can help you deal with depression, which I have done when I was in high school. I had therapy, so it was just me basically talking to someone about my feelings and what's happened through my life. And this can also help you to provide you a bit more of an insight of your actions, because sometimes people with bipolar disorder don't really think about how their actions are affecting other people, and this helps to improve their relationship with people. And my mum had some treatments in the mental hospital that she was in to basically focus her thoughts and her feelings around me and my brother, and how her effects on herself may be affecting us. And that was actually really helpful for her, and she constantly had pictures of me and my brother on the fridge, so that whenever she was walking around, she would always remember to think positively and not to harm herself. Lifestyle advice. This is things such as doing regular exercise. As I said, endorphins really help, I believe. Planning activities you enjoy that give you a sense of achievement, so planning to maybe go to the zoo with your friends, just simple little things that may not seem like a sense of achievement, but it is, because you're going out and you're doing something. As well as advice as improving on your diet and getting more sleep. As I've said in my how to cope video, which I will link below, I have said that it's very good to have a routine, and it's very good to have a good diet and get your sleep in, because I feel like when you eat shitty, you do tend to feel very shit, because you feel like you are drained constantly. So if you want to talk to someone confidentially about everything that I have just discussed, I am going to put some links down below for the Samaritans. It's all confidential. You do not have to say who you are or where you're from, and it is actually free of charge. And you can call them on 116123. Very easy number to remember. That's 116 and 123. You can talk to them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I believe this was actually the number my mum was given when she had suicidal thoughts. When she felt suicidal, she would ring a number and say, this is what I want to do to myself, blah, blah, blah. And it did help her most of the time. She did actually most of the time pull back away from that, because they just said basically we're talking her through steps to cope with it. I'm also going to leave a website link down below, which I got off the NHS website, okay, and this is for Samaritans, and they also left an actual personal email, and it is joe@samaritans.org, and this is basically so that people can contact by email if they don't want to physically speak to someone, because I know it's sometimes very hard to speak to someone about how you feel. I am always here, and I will put my Instagram and my Twitter up here. Always message me if you feel like you just need a little bit more advice, or you are stuck and you don't want to speak to someone that you know. I know sometimes it's easier to speak to a stranger. Don't ever feel that because you feel that you're not that type of person, which is what I thought I was. I thought people would take the piss out of me. I thought that people would make fun of me and say that you don't fit that stereotype. Well, guess what, guys? No one fits a stereotype, because there is no stereotype around mental health illness. I'll tell you that now. I hope that you like and subscribe to my channel and carry on the talk about mental health.